North Dakota After Dark is proudly brought to you by Endries Construction Services. With over 20 years of experience in all areas of construction, projects that include banks, oral surgery offices, dental offices, schools, retail space, and auto body shops, you name it, they can build it. They offer assistance with all phases of construction from the initial design all the way through completion. You dream it, they make it a reality. Your next project, looking to be a breeze? Call the folks at Endries.
So while we're waiting for Gino, do you want to start the show that we can do 5 minutes on dad water?
Sure. Hold on. I want to pull up these cans. I already told Matt about it though. I already
It
said
means something way different when you say it, Kelly.
he was very intrigued.
Yeah. I should probably buy some and drop one off.
Yeah. He was like, really? Because like I told you guys, he likes mom water. So
Yeah.
weird stuff goes on. Oh, here we go. Variety pack. Huh. Okay. Yep. Gary, Rodney, Steve, and Tom. Delish. Well, I'm trying it.
Yeah. What? Yeah. It's $2 cheaper than mom water. Yeah.
So Gary
Yeah.
is pineapple jalapeno. Rodney's blood orange. Steve is grapefruit. And Tom is lime. And you're right, it is tequila based.
Yeah.
Tequila, water, fruit flavors, and citric acid.
I can get behind all of that, but grapefruit seems to be towing the line of frou-frou for me for a dad water. What do you think?
I
I mean,
don't
it's dad water. I mean, how many dads drink jalapeno infused lime? Feels like a lot.
might be barking more up the mom tree. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but grapefruit, I'm not the person. I'm going to try it. I'll try all the flavors, but I don't like grapefruit flavored things because they either are like nothing tastes like squirt, which is the only grapefruit flavored thing I've ever drank that I've thought this is refreshing and delicious. Everything else grapefruit flavored, I've always been like, this is hot garbage and I don't want it. So we'll see what side of grapefruit they went for. Bitter and disgusting or light and refreshing. I don't know.
Okay, Kyle, have you actually gone to the website for this company?
No, I saw them. I've seen them twice in different liquor stores, and then today I stopped and took a closer look.
Okay, apart from the fact the cans look like if Anheuser-Busch, spent a long weekend at a conference and you're trying to come up with different advertising, they have individual meat Randy. So, or Rodney is his own man, like his 1967 Grabber orange Ford Mustang. Rodney stands out from the crowd. He lives life as fast as the car he drives, and the ladies love him.
This sounds like divorced dads doing speed dating, right?
Yes. Rodney, if you're gonna be dumb, you gotta be tough.
So,
Terrible.
Corey, before you came on, I was telling Kelly we had a complaint from a friend of yours that our show is becoming too reasonable. But I think we're going to get back into it. And plus, we're 4 minutes into the show and everybody's already looking at cans on the internet. So
yeah.
And why is Tom the original man? A man's lawn has to has a direct correlation to his character. Tom was voted most likely to need to be bailed out of jail.
Well, my name is Tom, so that tracks.
Who makes dad water? Does it?
It's Reserve Bar, I think they said. It is the name of the company that it came up under. Hold on, maybe that's the website. Hold on, I gotta look. Oh, that's the website. Hold on, let's see if they give a company name that it's under. Sorry, they're making me enter my date of birth, which is rude.
Yeah, already there. They don't say what the company name is. It's just the same as mom water.
Oh, okay.
And you know what? There's a 1 in front of my birth year, so you don't need to know any more
Right.
than that. That's the only thing. That means I'm over 21, and that's all I'm willing to disclose. Yeah, I'm trying to see, because I was trying to see, like maybe like I would dare say that like if these drinks get any more popular than they are, they will get bought by like Anheuser-Busch. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure they buy popular drinks after they
Yeah.
hit a certain threshold, and then they'll probably change them so they're shitty, because that's like,
That's
don't
what
even get
happens.
me started on pizza corner pizzas.
Yeah. Right. Right.
The
Good
level
point.
of rage that I have. We can
Oh,
do a
don't-
whole podcast on it.
Don't you dare start the who screwed up pizza corner pizza. I have written very nasty letters to the company. They've actually responded to some of my nasty letters, asked
No,
specifically what was different. And when I said, if you've got an hour, I'll be glad to tell you. I also said everything. You screwed up pizza. You screwed up small town bars. You suck, you assholes.
yes, no, the rage. Because, like, how do you go from, like, wow, these pizzas are really delicious. This is amazing. Let's make something gross and terrible in its place. Because I've tried a couple times thinking, well, maybe I haven't had one in a long time. Maybe they've gone back to where they are. They're not back there. They're gross and disgusting.
No, you have literally screwed up the greatest bar pizza of all time.
I agree.
Good on you, Bernatelli's, I think.
They drove me right into the arms of lots of matzah, and I don't even like those that much.
Man.
But they drove me there.
It's like Heggy's. It's just not the same. Although there is a pizza company out of Jamestown, North Dakota, that has, someone's told me it's very, very similar to the original pizza corner pizza. And I'm trying to remember, it's like, it's not Jack's, but by the end of this one, I'll have it, but it's supposed to be just as good.
I'm
Okay.
interested.
Well, we'll pick that up shortly, because I think there's more to do pizza wise. But for now, we'd like to welcome our guest, Gino Gasparini. Gino, thank you so much for joining us.
I can see you.
All right. Can you hear us okay, Gino?
Yeah, I can. Thank you.
All right. Well, Gino, welcome to our show. It's called North Dakota After Dark. We know each other. I'd like to introduce you to Kelly Moreland. Kelly, who I think you probably know her dad, Bruce Spicer.
Yep.
Yep. So to tie that together, and this is Corey Irian. Corey is not from town, but we went to law school together, and now I'd say friends or acquaintances. I haven't decided which one yet, Gino, but in that vein.
Well, that's normal for anybody.
Yeah. Well, Gino, thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate you having you on. We like to get together every week or two and talk about hockey in North Dakota. All our kids play hockey together, so we just try and chat about a few things. And so we thought we'd have you on to tell a few hockey stories.
Certainly.
Great. Well, Gino, we assume most of our 10 or 12 listeners know who you are, but we do have quite a few kids who are 12 and under. So for those of you who don't know, native of Fort Francis, Ontario, which we had the opportunity to visit this winter. Brought a trophy home from there.
You're kidding me.
No, we ran them out of their own rink, Gino. So,
Well, tell me about it. How could you do that?
well, I was the coach, Gino.
You're kidding me.
No,
Quit
and I had
bragging.
I double shifted
bragging.
Corey's kid all day. So we
I
had,
know.
yeah,
now,
went up.
tell me the story.
Okay, well, we went up in the middle of a blizzard in January, and we played the hometown Fort Francis squad on, I think it was Thursday night or Friday morning, and we had a good game with them. We beat them like 4-1 or 5-2.
Ages.
Oh, Pee-wees, first year Pee-wees.
All right, good enough.
Yep. The manager of the tournament said, well, we'll get you in the playoffs because my boy didn't play goal today. So when we see you again, you're going to get a different result. So just put that in your pocket for a minute. Had a couple good games on Saturday. Got to the semifinal where we met the very same Fort Francis team, and this time it was a better game because we beat them 8-0 with the managers. And then we played Kenora in the final. We beat them 7-0. So came home with a trophy.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good
So
deal.
that's it's somewhere in Grand Forks because they didn't bother to wait around for us to give it back to them. So we brought it home.
Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah. So we saw your picture on the wall. So that was fun. And yeah, really, really nice. Boy, we enjoyed the town. We enjoyed the rink. And so we liked that tournament a lot, especially because we won.
Good deal.
Yeah. So yeah, Gino, you're from Fort Francis, played at UND in the 60s, went on to be a assistant coach and a longtime, very successful head coach at UND, athletic director at UND, president of the USHL, and a nice guy. What did I miss, Gino?
Not a thing.
Dad to three
I
really nice
don't toot
boys.
you know I don't toot my own horn, Kyle.
Well, that's what we're here for, Gino. His son looked after me when I had to get my gallbladder removed. So just all around, and had a long talk with your son Tony today. Two long talks with him this morning. So
You're kidding me.
no, it's been
Jeez, I haven't talked to him in a couple days.
well, he's doing well. We're
I
I'll be
haven't,
helping him out with his
haven't
camp.
talked to him. I haven't talked. You talk to him more than I do, probably.
Well, that's what he says about you too, because I said, hey, I'm trying to get your dad out to bingo. And he's like, well, you have better luck calling him than I will. So
It's unbelievable.
kids,
I'm on
you
the
know?
golf course all the time. You know that, and I'm a
Yeah.
shit
Well,
player.
that's Gino, I golfed last week with the NCHC coaches, so I could have used a lesson from you.
Well, you probably needed one.
I was doing okay.
Those guys play pretty good golf. A lot of them.
They do. I was doing okay till the end, and then one of your former players, Jason Herder, pulled away from the pack. So
Oh, God, yes.
we'll call that a win for you too.
He can hit a ball.
He sure can. Another Saskatchewan guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gino, one of the things we like to talk about on the show, our kids all play together. I dabble in coaching. Corey does some coaching. Kelly knows a ton about hockey, and her husband Matt is the assistant coach at Central High School. So,
Well, and Kyle, do not forget to mention Gino's wife is a Grand Forks Central legend. She was my health teacher, Tootsie Gasparini, and she's probably like almost everybody that went to Grand Forks Central. Before a certain point, you're like, who's your favorite teacher? They'll tell you Tootsie Gasparini because she's the best. So,
but she taught sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
She did. She taught health, and health class was the best, and it was really fun. So
I've heard that story many times. She was, we were married 51 years, and she was a very special lady.
Yeah.
And I can understand what you're saying because I experience it daily with her.
Yeah.
I did.
She's wonderful. That like I said, she's a Grand Forks Central legend, and she's most people you talk to's favorite teacher from Central because she's just bubbly and wonderful and bright and
yeah, never saw that lady without a smile on her face.
Yeah. Corey, where is Corey coaching?
So I coach baseball more than hockey, mostly because I don't know anything about hockey whatsoever. My children
are coaching, Corey.
What was that?
Where are you coaching now?
I coach in Grand Forks. I coach with the Grand Forks Youth Association.
Oh, do you? Good for you.
Yeah. And actually, I have some ties to you to a degree because my brother-in-law, a former guest on the show, Matt Strinden, knows Tony and Andy very well.
Oh, yes. I have my son, Andy is a doctor locally, family medicine here. And who's the other one, Joey or Tony?
I think he said he knew Tony.
Yeah.
Tony. Yeah. Tony's my oldest son, doing very well at Sioux Falls. Spent 18 years in the National Hockey League as a scout with LA. And, it was I didn't think he was going to make that change ever because he enjoyed it so much. He was all over the world. He's got his name on the Stanley Cup. He's got a couple Stanley Cup rings. And what's interesting about that is that when you spend that much time in the NHL, I was shocked when he departed, but he wanted another challenge, and he's now in Sioux Falls as the vice president and director of hockey operations for Sioux Falls as the general manager. So it's a pleasant change for him, and I hope things go well.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, Gino, I was going to talk about a little later in the show, just as part of your, say, your coaching legacy at UND is, and this is to toot Tony's horn a little bit. Anytime you call Tony, he always has time to stop and talk, takes an interest in some of the players you want to talk about. And I think I've long said, anyone that's involved in really any level of hockey, but especially at the collegiate level or at the junior level, if you put a little time and effort and just some basic manners and common sense into it, you'll be successful. So I think he's going to do well there.
Yep, no doubt about it. And that's it. He's open-minded, but he's got a lot of experience in watching players.
Yeah.
And he's, what I found out, and I didn't realize this, is that he's got a pretty good eye to develop in seeing what players are going to be exceptional. And I think that's a key, and I told him, I always told him this. I says, Tony, anybody can pick the first rounder.
Right.
And I says, the trick is picking the 6th and 7th rounder. The ones that turn out to be NHL players. I remember that very vividly, telling him that. And he's been pretty good at it.
Yeah. We brought that up on the show before that, the numbers suggest that anything after the 3rd round in the NHL draft, you only have a 15% chance of playing a single game. So,
Right.
If you can find a gem or a longtime guy or a regular in the lineup, even you're doing well.
That's exactly it. Well, same thing can be true when you talk about college recruiting.
Right.
Because if you go through all the college athletics, all the teams that are involved, it's easy to pick the top enders. But the trick is finding the ones that have not necessarily 4-year careers in college, because the NHL is now drawing those guys. But if you can find the guy that's going to play 1, 2, 3 years, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, he signs an NHL contract. That in itself is a big deal. I think it's a big deal. I think it's a compliment to the guy that recruits them. And I college athletics are doing a pretty good job in finding those athletes.
They really are. And I think one of the things you see now, Gino, as opposed, right after law school, I worked with Gino at the USHL for a number of years and had the opportunity to travel around to some rinks with them. And you'd see some college guys there, but now any rink you go to, really anywhere, you're going to find a college coach looking for people. Like, Gino, I think I saw you a number of years ago and I said, I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, and was just bored on a Sunday, went to watch a game at, 10 in the morning. And there was 3 college coaches there watching a 16U game. So they're putting in the work to find the guys. It's not happening by accident either.
No, it isn't. But those are the way. That's the way it's going.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. Can I bring up an item about college athletics?
Of course, you can talk about whatever you like.
Well, and I follow pretty much everything in hockey. Because I watch it, and it's the way I am. But one of the things that's coming up, and it's going to be the NCAA regarding the CHL.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue. A lot of these guys that are coaching today in college athletics, there's very, very few of them ever dealt with it when the CHL and the NCAA situation arose. I was a college athlete. I was an assistant coach during that era. dealing with the CHL. I recruited the CHL which was the beginning of the exception of the major junior. Now, I'm not anti-major junior, but I can tell you this: I don't think it's in the best interest of college hockey to open up the CHL. Now, it might be a very testy question that I'm bringing up right now, only because I think what may transpire, because as I look at what has happened in college hockey now, they're getting a certain number of very high-end young players selecting to go to college hockey.
Yeah.
And they're top enders. They're high-end draft choices, and they're very top-end players. And if you open up what will happen in the CHL, if you open up the CHL, those players, when they're 15, 16 years old, they're going to go to the CHL and play in the highest level competition they can get to. Now, you got to look at, okay, what will transpire? Those players will not end up in college hockey. All of a sudden, college hockey will end up to be like the Canadian universities. 19, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, because they'll play their first 3, 4, 5 years, they'll play 3 or 4 or 5 years of junior hockey in Canada, and or, the USHL. I always said they're going to, you're going to end up, if you do it the right way, you're going to end up with players that'll end up in the USHL, play very, very well, and then become high-end draft choices. My question is this: in CHL in Canada, what'll happen to these 16-year-olds? What's the kid that played in Boston?
Celebrini.
Where'd he come from?
Vancouver, yeah, BC.
Okay, so is he going to play? Is he going to go to college if the CHL is available? Probably not. He's going to end up playing in the CHL, and all of a sudden, 1-2 years, he's going to play 2 years there. Is he going to end up going to college? Chances are probably not. He's going to end up taking a pro contract. And you know what? I see those numbers. I can go back to James Patrick and all these guys that played for me, which was a lot of them. And they probably would do the same thing. And so I'd be very careful. Now, the NCAA is worrying about lawsuits. Get your head out of your ass. That's all it is. It's all about lawsuits.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now, I guarantee you, they're going to get sued by some athlete, and they're going to open it up. And I think that's going to be the ruination of college hockey. College hockey will end up to be an old league rather than a young league.
Right.
And the only salvation to that, Kyle, is that you're gonna end up with more American kids playing in college hockey. But if all of a sudden they're gonna get bumped out of college hockey because of 19, 20-year-old players coming out of major junior, I don't agree with it. I'm really worried about that. I've talked to a lot of Marshall Johnson and I used to have this discussion a lot, and he felt the same way as I do. He had a concern about that. Yeah, and there's a lot of us that feel that way.
I think what people are focused on is colleges getting some older 20-year-olds to maybe replace losses to the transfer portal. But like as Gino notes, nobody's paying attention to those younger guys who can't come to college. They're not done high school, so they're
That's it.
There, they sign their contract and off they. So in that example, like Celebrini would never have made it to Boston, right? He would have been playing for Vancouver Giants, and
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. And that's the part that concerns me.
Yeah.
I think that's, there's a balance there. There is an interesting scenario there that kind of, I'll tell you what, I don't know. I think they're going to get less top end players than more. That's what the part that concerns me about for college hockey. They might get the American kid, but you aren't going to get the other kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have a problem. The NCAA is they're kind of spineless right now. They're getting threatened by people like you, Kyle.
I'm a tremendously nice guy.
Lawyers, and you know what? And you know what? They deserve it, but they're spineless. I'll tell you what they are. I look at it right now, and it's kind of interesting scenario that is happening out there. And I think they got to have the balls to stand up for what is right, because I don't like what's transpiring in college hockey. I'm not a favorite. I think the NIL is going to kill athletics. And I'm talking about the whole realm of athletics in college. NIL, you name it, it's going to kill it.
And you're starting to see that a little bit already where, I've heard, and these stories are anecdotal, but calls being placed to coaches, not, hey, what's your program like? What could I study in school? But, how much money am I getting up front? So it's really changed. It's already changed.
That's where the
recruiting
transfer portal is a joke. It's all about money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think decisions.
Kyle, I personally wouldn't even want to be coaching in college athletics right now. For the simple reason, because of the transfer portal. The transfer portal is dangerous because anytime a kid is challenged, he has the option to jump into the portal.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this from experience. I had some players play for me early on. And I'm not going to name names, but I had players play for me that didn't play a lot because they were fourth liners. They were on the bottom end of the roster. And next thing you know, in this day and age, I guarantee you they would have transferred. As it turned out, they stuck it out. And I can tell you about one athlete stuck it out. He turned out to be an All-American, turned out to be an MVP, turned out to be an MVP of the NCAA tournament, turned out to have a 13-year career as an NHL player. That doesn't happen. And today, I think a lot of those guys would bugger off. Yeah. They'd transfer. Am I wrong?
You're not. It's just looking for the path of least resistance versus, putting the work or time in, right?
That's it. Well, no, it's the challenges. And as a coach, you always challenge players. I challenge players. And you have to do it. We hope you got enough rapport with athletes to challenge them. But, some are going to run. They're going to run. They're going to run.
Yeah. Pete DeBoer, kind of longtime NHL coach, now said the same thing, is like you try and, just like you're saying, you want to get that rapport with players, but, at a certain level, if you're often fired by the time you can get that rapport. And same thing in college hockey. Sometimes the players are gone before you can establish the relationship. So
right, that's exactly it. What the hell? Hey, you're hired to be fired.
Well, you see it all the time. There's what
National Hockey League. That's the way it is.
6 or 8 openings right now.
That's it.
I think Corey had a question about recruiting, but just before we get into Corey's recruiting question, going back to Fort Francis, can you tell us how you ended up in Grand Forks at UND and then how you got into coaching?
I was recruited. To come to UND and I was recruited by Duluth and by North Dakota. And I ended up at North Dakota. The coach at that time was, it originally was Barry Thornycraft, but he ended up not being around. Bob Peters recruited me. Turned out he was my neighbor, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
His mother and my mother were best of friends, and he recruited me to come, and I accepted that option. The assistant coach was Bill Selman, lived 3 blocks away from me. So, that's the way it went. North Dakota had a long trail of players from Fort Francis area, guys that, Guy LaFrance and that were
Yeah.
the captain here and here at North Dakota. So there was a real connection, and I was fortunate. I was very fortunate. So I ended up coming here.
What Gino, what did you do prior to getting into coaching? Did you have any other career path before you got into coaching?
You know what was interesting? After I graduated, I moved out east, and I worked for a company called Standard Brands of Canada, which was a multinational confection company. So I worked the Southern Ontario area. I was selling, and I learned a lot of things just selling different products, and it was kind of interesting. I was playing hockey out there in Woodstock, senior hockey. I went to the rookie camp of the Los Angeles Kings. You have to understand this. That's the first year of the expansion of the National Hockey League from 16s to 12. And then I ended up going to Toronto. They held their rookie camp there, and I went to rookie camp, and that's where I was. And I ended up not they wanted me to go somewhere else, and I didn't want to. I ended up playing senior hockey. So I had a sister that lived in London, Ontario, and I ended up going to London, Ontario. I spent that year playing senior hockey and putzing around. And next thing you know, I get a call from North Dakota to come back as an assistant coach, as a graduate assistant, get my master's degree. So that's my history.
Yeah.
So I came back, and Rube Bjorkman was a coach at that time. I came back and came back to go to master's, came back to go to school again. At that time, very few people understand, there's a difference where it was and where it is today. University of North Dakota never, ever had a full-time assistant coach. And I got hired as a graduate assistant in 1979, I think it was. Yeah, I did. And I came back here, I was going to school, got my master's degree, and next thing you know, they offered me a full-time position. I was the first full-time assistant coach on a salary. Now ask me what the salary was.
Oh, I want to know. If you'll share, I do want to know.
I do. I will share it because it was embarrassing. My wife, who she and I were going together. She was making more money than me. They offered me. I have the contract still in my file. $8,000 as an assistant coach.
Oh, wow.
Now figure out Dane Jackson and those guys are probably making $200,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now think about it.
8,000 you started. And did you have any
$8,000.
kids at that time?
Pardon me?
Were any of your kids around at that time?
No, we were.
No, not yet. No kids yet.
No kids yet. Yeah. But that was my first contract, $8,000.
8,000. Wow.
Hell, shit, you can't $8,000. You can't even. What can you buy with $8,000?
You
That's
can't even get a bar anymore for 8.
Oh, shit.
that's somebody's bar
It's
bill at
funny.
the coaches
It's
convention
funny.
in Naples now.
What's that?
That's somebody's bar bill at the Naples convention now.
That's it. That's it. You know that. It's my bar bill at the country club right now tonight. It's stupid.
Some
It's
good red
stupid.
wine, I bet.
Pardon me?
Must be some good red wine out there, Gino.
Well, I don't drink a lot of red anymore.
What have you moved on to?
I'd moved to white. I drink a little Chardonnay now and then.
Yeah, well, that's okay.
I don't drink a lot of beer anymore or anything like that. Anyway, let's get away from that.
Okay.
Corey, what did you want to talk to me about?
So, Gino, I'm fascinated by recruiting, and I know nowadays, it seems like the parents of kids younger and younger are trying to get their kids recruited everywhere, up and down the street. But what I'm fascinated about was recruiting at UND or at other places back in the day. What was the process like? How did you find kids to play?
Well, I'll tell you what, I used to spend a lot of time on the road. I had a rule when I was coaching early on, and my staff at that time, were Blazer and John Marks, and I wanted to see every kid. It was important to me, and early on, I was able to do that because I'll tell you what, there were many Saturday night games. We'd play a Saturday night at home, and I would jump in the car and I'd be driving to Winnipeg to catch a plane or on Sunday morning or whatever. I did that. I tried put a lot of miles in, and of course I did that because I thought it was important. I wanted to see these kids as best I could. Pretty soon, and when I took the AD's job, I couldn't do it. There was too much. I had too many responsibilities, so it was difficult. But I made every effort to do that, and basically, I have to tell you, it's a difficult time. And most important was get with the kids, see the kids play, and most important was time with the parents. I spent a lot of time visiting with moms and dads. It was important to me. I used to make a lot of special trips to visit with moms and dads because I was convinced if I could recruit the mother, I was going to get the kid.
That's a very good theory.
What's that?
Kelly likes that one.
Very good theory. Because I think it's the moms that have the hardest time letting the babies fly the nest. So
That's exactly it.
Yep.
If you get the moms, you get the son.
Yep. If moms think their baby's going somewhere where they're going to be well taken care of, they're
want to
way
believe
more
it.
likely to let them go.
Moms are very important in this whole process.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
So, Gino, with that, like,
I had a lot.
Go-
Corey, I have
Yep.
to tell you this. I had a lot of people who did a lot of legwork for me.
Okay.
Friends, former players who did a lot of eyeballing for me long before I got there. It made it easier. Like my theory was always, I wanted to recruit the top end players, and that's how we got them. And if you go back in my history as a coach, take a look at the top end players, a lot of them. And they were all, they were well sought after players that had great NHL careers. And that was my theory as a coach. And every now and then you get lucky and find a second or third tier player who turned out to be a top end player. Had a lot of those too. So anyway, go ahead.
Oh, that's good, great stuff. So I'm curious then, so you're out there on the road, you're talking to parents. At some point, and maybe now or later, I got to ask you if you ever met some crazy parents and some stories about that. But
what got the kids here? What were you selling to the kids? Was it culture? Was it your coaching philosophy? Was it, the beautiful winters we have here in North Dakota?
Oh no, you don't talk about the climate in Grand Forks, or you don't talk about any of that. My theory, and you know what? You have to understand this, is that University of North Dakota wasn't what it is today. Take a look at that. Ralph Engelstad Arena wasn't there. We had the old building. I played in the barn, in the old barn. And it had a history that was unique to itself. And the trick in North Dakota, I was recruiting that it could be anything that it wanted to be. In other words, I was selling, okay, I sold, we're not Minnesota, we're not Wisconsin, we're not Michigan State, we're not Michigan. But you know what? I found out that those places weren't putting any more money into their program in my time than what we could do as well. And that's what I sold. In other words, we could be 10% better than them in how we were handling ourselves. And that was a sales job. Was it true? Yeah. Hey, you got to be able to sell it.
I hear you. I hear you. I try to sell things to Kyle all the time, but he's not buying anything I'm selling.
Hey, you should. Oh, I got canceled out.
We still got you.
I don't see anything. Oh, there we go. All right.
Yeah, we're back.
All right.
So I've told you have a great story about trying to recruit Chris Chelios.
Well, that the Chilios thing, we did recruit him. He committed to us. Unfortunately, he's the first to admit he also decommitted, and it was because of James Patrick. James Patrick was playing in PA, Prince Albert. Chilios was playing in Moose Jaw. Good player. And, both of them top end players. PA was a better team. They ended up beating them. But the interesting part about that is that, hey, Chelios ends up going to Wisconsin. And James Patrick came to North Dakota. James Patrick had a wonderful career, not only at North Dakota, but also as an NHL player. And those things happen. They happen. He's not the only one. He's not the only one. There's a lot of others I could tell you stories about, but I don't like to bring them up. The Chelios one, we talk about that. A lot of people talk about that one, but it's kind of one of those things that it happens. Players change their mind, and away they go.
So did they not get along? So he didn't want to go where he was?
No.
Oh, I thought maybe it was rivalry.
No, it had nothing to do with that.
Oh, okay.
All I know is that I can tell you this, and I remember we're in Dane County. We're in Wisconsin. We go to Wisconsin. Bus pulls up. We're unloading, and we get off the bus. Right, we're near the dressing room, and doors open. And everything. Next thing you know, a guy drives up in a Cherokee, brand new Cherokee, and Jim Archibald, who was a teammate of Chelios, sees him there, and he says, "Hey!" He runs after him. They're talking, jawing, this and that. So he comes over, and Archibald comes over. And he says, "Hey, coach, what the hell's going on? That's Chelios, what he's driving. Why don't I have one of those new Cherokee trucks driving?" You don't know what I was dealing with.
So Gino, when you're coaching hockey, what was your philosophy with your team? What kind of culture were you trying to build here?
Well, we tried to build a culture of accountability. You know, you have to understand, if you talk to any players that played for me, I was very demanding. You compete with honesty and accountability, or you're not going to play. I was a very demanding type of a coach. And in this day and age, you know, the way things are now, I would think that's pretty difficult to beat. Because with the portal, I would think that would be very difficult to be as I was. I don't know. That's why I say I don't know if I can coach in this day and age. Yet, I think that was part of the reason why we had success. Players did what they were supposed to do. Players acquired success because they competed so well. And I think that's about coaching. That was my coaching philosophy, is that it's easy to be average, but it's not easy to be the best. And I think that's why we won.
I
You
have
know,
to ask Gino, because so my husband coaches, and I was telling him before that you were going to be our guest, and so he was very jealous because he was like, oh, what a great guest. And one of the things that he was saying to me, because I was like, well, you know, what would you talk about with him? And he said, well, one of the things that I know about Gino Gasparini, he said, is that he was one of the first coaches to really embrace the skill side of the game before his time. He's like, so I would kind of talk about that. So I kind of want to ask you about that. Matt was saying is that I think that the game definitely is moving in the direction of a high skill game. What was your philosophy on that in terms of coaching and focusing on skill development?
well, that's all part of it. I used to, what's interesting about that is, and I'll tell you this, I am a big believer, philosophically, I'm a believer in it. And that's part of being demanding. What people don't understand is that it's easy to be average. It's easy to be middle of the road. But to be great, damn, I'll tell you what, you have to have not only skill, you have to have speed, you have to have intestinal fortitude, you have to have all the things that makes athletes be better than just average. So I was that way. I was that way personally. If I was going to be average, shit, get the hell out of here. That's what it's about. Kyle, you know what I'm talking about.
I do actually. The one story, Gino, I remember you telling, it was at a USHL All-Star game, and someone one of the young coaches asked you about what coaching advice could you give him about trying to about in-game coaching essentially. And you said, I put my best 5 guys on the ice as much as I could, and I let the other guy worry about it. And I thought that was
That's
that was one of my favorite lines ever.
And you know what?
But
People don't realize. You know what? People don't realize. All the years that I coached at North Dakota, I did that all the time.
yeah,
And you know what? I was fortunate, and I recruited that way. When you take 5 or 6 players, if you have a Tony Herkus or a Troy Murray or James Patrick, and you know what? I'd load them up and I'd challenge the opposing coach to see what he could do. And that was part of my philosophy. Part of my philosophy. And if I had 10 players that were better than the next 10 players on the other team, then it was a it was a win-win.
Right.
That was my philosophy. I did it all the time.
So nice and simple.
Yeah, that was part of my philosophy. And you're right, Kyle. I remember saying that.
Yeah, it was a good. That one always stuck with me, Gino.
Well, I think that's what I'll tell you what. And you sometimes coaches today they overthink the situation, and they're always looking to balance attack. And I always said, load it up and make the opposition adjust. That was my philosophy. Whether that was commonplace, well, I don't know, but I like to do that. And you know what? I can turn the clock back and I can tell you that I had third line centers that scored almost 75 points. Scott Koborinsky,
Yeah.
who's a third line center that had, I think he had 70 some points when he was a junior or senior. Pretty damn good, because what happens is the opposition's always trying to put their top players against your top players. And if your top players are better, then you're laughing. Yeah, that was the way I did it.
Let
I'm
those
not saying it's functional today, but I'm a big believer in that.
Well, let's those guys beat up on the other team's cupcakes, right? If the other team's
That's exactly it. I watched Denver playing against Colorado College, or no, not Colorado College. Denver playing against Boston.
Yeah.
Boston College. And I'll tell you what, I give the Denver coach all the credit in the world, because they won that game because their players just, they were committed. They were committed. They shut down that, and BC was loaded, but they shut them down. I give him credit. I give him all the credit in the world as a coach, how he handled his players and what they did. They checked so well. And I've never seen Denver check that well. Usually that's North Dakota, the way they check. Anyway.
One of the other, well, not really a question. This is more, I'm just going to tee one up for you, Gino, to tell a couple more stories. But you had the opportunity in the course of your coaching and your travels to meet and coach with a lot of very well-known coaches and hockey personalities. One of those is Lou Lamoriello.
Oh, God.
You told the story once about when Lou was coaching at Providence. You took the boys, North Dakota out there, and a couple of the boys almost ran afoul of some nefarious Italian characters. Do you want to tell that one for us?
Why would I divulge that? Come on.
Well, you can remove all the names, or the names have been changed to protect the innocent or not so
God
innocent.
almighty. Lou Lamoriello, he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And like a lot of those guys still are today. And next thing you know, we're playing in out there in Providence, and all of a sudden I get a phone call. Louis says, I got a friend of mine that wants to talk to you. And it was a store owner, and two of our players, I'm not going to mention who they are, were shopping in there, and he was buying items with, God, I can't remember how this worked. You got to remember, this is 30 years ago. What was it?
The way I heard it, Gino, was that a couple of guys went out to eat and decided to dine and dash, but it was the wrong restaurant to do that.
No, it wasn't a dine and dash.
Okay.
It wasn't a dine and dash. It was they had some Canadian, what do they call them? I can't remember
Like
what
loonies
they
or
were.
toonies?
Nah, they were not doonies or toonies. They're not Canadian dollars. They were like cashier's checks,
Oh, traveler's checks, you mean?
traveler's checks.
Yeah.
That's what they were. And they were, and unfortunately, they took them at face value, and they were about $30 or $40 less than what they should.
Oh, okay.
Shit. And goddamn kids are trying to do everything these days to get skin. Anyway, so it turned out it was a joke. They end up I get a call from Ed. What's interesting is that Providence was well known to be members of so I get this call. So we end up having to go down there and straighten it out. And fortunately, it was a good thing because we had been there, and Kyle, the interesting part is that it turns out that I'm trying to think, the mayor at that time was a good friend, and he got it all straightened out in a hurry because they were all connected Italian people. Don't laugh. It was serious at that time.
Can't even imagine how scary it was. That would have been terrible. Of all the places that they could come up short.
Right.
Oh my God.
Wait, was that Mayor Buddy Cianci?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Good
Buddy
point.
went to jail. You know
I was
that.
gonna say, I think he ran on an anti-organized crime platform back then.
And he was right in the middle of it.
Yeah, not a smart platform. Do you think it helped out a little bit, Gino, that your last name was Gasparini? Did that probably?
Very much so.
Yes.
Buddy and I became very good friends. He set us up with a nightclub that I took the team to eat, and we ate the best seafood you could ever imagine. We had 35, 40 people in there, and I'll tell you, and when the bill came, it was like, see you, coach. And there's 35, 40 of us we're eating lobster and shrimp. Couldn't believe it. And so that was 1 year. Then we go back next year, and then we find out the guy's in jail. True story. We go back the next year, and the guy was in jail.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Pete Bolzano. Yeah, I can't. Oh, it's interesting story. Anyway,
yeah.
What?
I'm not sure if you want to get into this one, but you have a very similar story on the opposite side of the country, up in Alaska, when they were trying to get their team started, and they asked you guys up there to help give them respectability.
Brushy was the coach, Brush Christensen.
Yeah, and I recall there's also a nightclub involved, and
oh no, I'm not bringing that one up.
Okay. I like that one because there was a guy wearing 6-shooters.
You know what? It's good that my wife, she's gone, but God bless her. I'm not going to bring that one up.
Okay, that's just fine.
Kyle, loose lips, sink ships.
Give me a break. Give me a break.
Okay, I'll break given.
Okay.
Oh.
Gino, probably a good time to ask Kyle if he's wearing a wire.
Yeah, bugger. He always was. But I used to tell him, he spent all that time with us working, and we had a lot of fun together.
A lot of fun.
You were so good at your job, and you know what? Unfortunately, the USHL needs somebody like you.
Well, but so do Corey and Kelly. If I'm not around to tell jokes, I'm just going to do it.
That's true. You're not going anywhere, Kyle. All right.
Yeah.
Well, listen, the three of you are awesome. It's good. You're awesome. Thank you.
Back at you, Gino. Speaking of USHL, they could use someone like you, I think, too.
Well, I'm too old for that.
We'll get the band back together. There's only 3 of us at that time. and now they have a whole big staff.
They have a staff and they're all horseshit.
Yeah. Little good time to give a shout out to John Garver and Scott Brand and all the
Oh,
guys
these guys,
and
yeah.
Jackie Cleveland, all the
Oh,
old
God.
timers. It made it fun.
Jackie. Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah.
They don't realize how good they had it. But I worry about the league, and I want to see it grow. And it's
Yeah, me
doing
too.
all right, but I want to see it grow. You know some of the philosophies I had about how that league should be operated and what it means. And if the business side of the league overtakes the development side that is necessary, because those two are always in conflict.
Yeah.
And if they don't find balance, it's going to hurt the league. And that's one of the problems in development. It's one of the problems that they're confronted with, and it's all got to do with ownership seeing that balance that is necessary. And that was the battle and the war that I had for 15 years with them.
Yeah.
And trying to steer them in the right direction and trying to steer the league in that right direction. Fortunately, I had guys like Butch Johnson, people like that who were so dedicated to the game and dedicated to development. And so I just hope that they can continue to find that balance. The moment they get too preoccupied with the business side of it and it's all about money,
Yeah.
they're going to be in trouble.
And that's I think true with a lot of different junior leagues in Canada too, where it's dollars and cents, not what kind of players are we making here, right?
That's exactly it. And development, and that's the balance that you gotta, that's the trick.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I give credit to a lot of ownerships in the USHL when I was their commissioner, president. To see what I was trying to talk to them about. And when you talk about, and Butch Johnson, he was the best. And because here he was, in the middle of it. And he convinced a lot of them to understand what we were trying to do and trying to get to where the league should be. And I think that was a big part of it. And now the league's doing quite well, but I hear these rumblings, and I hear these things. And I just hope they get them worked out because, whether it's leadership problems or whatever, but I get concerned.
Well, especially you spend so much time with the league, you like to see it continue on and be successful, and so it's I think it's a well-founded concern. That's
exactly it, Kyle. Because you spent all that time in the league as I did. I spent 14 years, 15 years with them, and I want to see them succeed. I want to see them be better than what they were when I was there.
Right? Yeah.
I don't want to see them dip. I don't want to see them develop. I want to see them develop. I want to see them develop players and be a better than the CHL is in developing players that can go on and go to college, be high-end draft choices, and that's what it's all about. That's what our goal was.
Yeah, and it seems like it's right there. It just needs to continue on that path and avoid the steps backwards.
Well, that's it. Ownership can kill it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
If they think the wrong way.
You're totally right. Just so we don't keep you too long, Gino, one of the other things I alluded to it at the beginning when we talked about Tony there, but just down in Naples, as I said, there's a couple new college programs thinking of starting up, and know some of the people involved. And tried to introduce them around a little bit down in Naples, and some college coaches don't have a lot of time to talk to new people, but just wanted to speak highly of the North Dakota staff, especially Brad Barry, who stopped and took the time and spent some
Yep.
time with some of these young coaches. And could you talk a little bit about some of the qualities you see in, you know, former players of yours that are now coaching at North Dakota, and what you see of yourself and some of these guys, and maybe what lessons they took to heart?
Well, there's a lot of good programs around now. And I think the trick in being a good coach is not only being a good leader and being a straightforward guy, being straightforward. But I think one of the things today, because they're dealing in a different scenario than what I did. It's not only knowledge of the game, it's what it's motivation to get people to do things. Good coaches are very demanding, but good coaches are also developing rapport, developing understanding of each and every player in their squad. Is getting to know players, getting to know them individually, getting to know what makes them click. Kyle, I'll tell you what, it's a tough racket.
Yeah.
Coaching is a tough racket, but I think certain personalities do better than others. Some people have that personality to be head coaches. Some personalities do not. And I can't, it's a trick. There's a real trick in this business. And I'll tell you, I flipped my career back, and I can tell you what made me better than most. I knew what I wanted. I knew what I was demanding was achievable. And I think a lot of coaches sometimes overlook that. I look at some of the young coaches coming up, and I think there's a fear on their part of not being able to acquire what they're looking for. And, I think they're hired to be fired. I think that's one of the interesting parts now, is that and I can tell you, when I was president of the USHL, I used to tell ownership, be careful. You hire a coach, you got to give him time to grow. You got to give him time to learn. These are all young coaches. You got to give them time to learn and how to coach. And there's no magic formula. What works for one doesn't necessarily work for the other. That makes sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
And, I played for some very successful coaches and people. So I learned from them. But I'll tell you what, I was a plagiarist. I think you got to be a plagiarist.
Yeah.
Take what works for you and use it and run with it. That makes sense?
It does. You can't always reinvent the wheel, right?
No, I think you got to do whatever was going to work for you is going to be the answer. Corey, does that make sense for you as a baseball guy?
100%.
You got to be a good plagiarist. I'll tell you, that's what I've always said.
Very little of my own material did I ever come up with.
Exactly it. You don't want, what the hell? I'm not a naturalist, I'm more of a better plagiarist than I've ever been in my life. I admitted that. I remember being in Penticton, BC, and the newspaper guy asked me about it. He says, what reason do you have success? I says, I'm a plagiarist. I cheat, I steal. I cheat and I steal from whatever I can get my hands on. put what works for you and go from there. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer in that. We all have different personalities, and so we go from there.
Well, the good news is I got 2 pages of notes to steal from you, so that's the
Be a good plagiarist.
Good thing to pass along. Gino, we're coming up on our time here, so we have a few minutes left, but you obviously spent a long time behind the bench. You had obviously a good track record, WCHA Coach of the Year, NCAA Coach of the Year, coached against and with a lot of guys. I think Corey has a question he likes to ask of all our guests about heated exchanges, so I'm gonna give him a final chance to pick your brain here.
as the non-ranking know nothing about hockey guy. I love chirps. I love them. You had to have heard your fair share of them. What's the best chirp you've ever heard?
Ah, man. Best year, you know what? I'll tell you what, in Minnesota, in the old Williams Arena, in the old building, God almighty, they used to make fun of me because I wore loafers. And they used to tease me about wearing, like not, just high-end shoes.
They're nice shoes.
Very nice shoes. I wrecked a lot of them standing on the bench, I'll tell you. Anyway, Corey, I have to tell you this. The goddamn guys at Minnesota put a bunch of crap on the bench, wrecked the soles of my shoes.
No.
Yeah, $100 shoes, and they wrecked them.
Oh.
Oh,
They did that. I got chirped pretty good. They intentionally did that.
That's dirty. That's dirty
Really
play.
is.
And you know who was coaching on the other team? Herbie Brooks.
Oh, no.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But we got him back because we ended up beating them.
Yeah, absolutely. They can have the shoes.
Yeah.
did
True.
Brooks?
I threw the shoes away.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gino. Did Brooks ever send you $100 to pay for those loafers?
No. Herbie, we were very competitive guys, and he gave me a lot of crap, and I did the same thing to him. When it was all done and said, we became pretty good friends. Years later, we became pretty good friends. Loved him. Loved talking to him. Loved having a cocktail with him. It was kind of fun.
Very cool.
You have a lot of enemies in your coaching career. I did anyway. Felt I did. And you're adversarial, but as it turns out, as you grow older, you end up having, you think different of it. And when it's all done and said, you're just trying to beat the shit out of him, and he's doing like
So what you're saying is there's hope for me and Kyle as friends at some point as we get old.
You will become friends. You will become friends. When it's all done and said, you will become friends.
I let him move into the neighborhood, Gino. So.
Huh?
I let him move into the neighborhood, so we're halfway there.
There you go. There you go, Kyle. I know that.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Hey, interesting talk.
Yeah, Gino, thank you so much for joining us. That was a lot of fun. Feel free to come back on anytime.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'll get the rest of the boys on. They can all give their 2 cents, and then you can circle back and take your turn again.
Oh, geez, we'll get a battle with those guys.
Yeah, maybe
Take care.
we'll get Garver. We had an old USHL ref and linesman on, one of Corey's friends. So maybe I'll try Scotty Brand and then Garver. Then
Have you had Brando on?
I haven't had Brando on yet, but that's it's on the list. So
Oh my God, he's funnier than hell,
yeah, I got to actually. I just talked to him the other day. He's running that team out in Detroit there. So tried to send him a kid from Winnipeg. So I got to call him back.
Okay. Well,
So, yeah.
Kyle, keep up the good work.
Yeah,
Take
you
care.
too. Let us know when you're in town. Bingo on me here, okay?
All right, partner. Take care.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Gino.
Have a nice
Thanks.
evening, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.